Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for being patient with the little technical problems. I still have to get our guest on, which is Dr. Jose Arguelles.
From the West, House of Transformation. May wisdom be transformed into right action, so we may do what must be done.
You can talk again. Jose, are you there?
That's me.
Oh, great. We made it. Oh, great.
Did it happen?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we're live, and I'm going to introduce you right now.
Okay, good.
The beautiful track that you were listening to originally, everyone, that was from the Arcturian folk song CD, written and performed by our guest, Dr. Jose Arguelles. And this is Rainbow Vision Show for Saturday, December 12th, 2009. And for my guest, Jose, it's already Sunday, December 13th in Australia. I'm your host, Betsey Lewis. The chat room is open, as you probably know. You've been sitting there for a while and being so patient, everyone. The call-in number is 347-637-2650. Jose Arguelles has been described as a golden-hearted, humble man, and he's also the author, artist, teacher, and the man behind the 2012 phenomena, who first introduced the date December 21st, 2012 into mass consciousness along with the Harmonic Convergence of 1987. He also gained notoriety with his book, The Mayan Factor, Path Beyond the Technology, the same year. He is one of the originators of the Earth Day concept and founded the Whole Earth Festival in 1970. Jose's 1989 discovery of the law of time has generated a number of fourth-dimensional tools, including the 13-moon, 28-day calendar, which is actually a synchronometer or measure of synchronicity. This calendar, one of the systems of the Mayans used, is part of the natural cycle, which Jose believes can bring about a harmonious shift in consciousness. Jose's books include The Transformative Vision, The Mayan Factor, Earth Ascending, Time and the Technosphere. And there's also a biography entitled 2012, Biography of a Time Traveler, The Journey of Jose Arguelles, which was written by Stephanie South. And I also want to let you know his websites are lawoftime.org and noosphereforum.org. That's NOOSPHERE forum.org. Welcome to the show. Jose, I wasn't sure if you were going to make it tonight. How are you?
I made it okay. I wasn't sure whether you were going to make it.
I know. Yeah, it was a little scary there for a minute.
Yeah, well, that cybersphere can be a little testy.
It can sometimes. Well, maybe it's kind of, I thought it was going to be an auspicious day. Everybody's been talking about 12/12 today, and I don't know, maybe there's something in the cosmos.
Yeah, well, it is very auspicious. 12/12, 12 times 12, of course, is 144, and that's a rather magical number, as we know both in the book of Revelation and in the Mayan calendar. A cycle of 144,000 days defines one Baktun, and we're in the last Baktun of the great cycle of history with only 1,105 days to go.
Wow. Well, you're such a fascinating man, and it's such an honor to have you on the show tonight from the land down under. I wanted to talk a little bit about you first, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know a lot about you, and you're just a fascinating man. But I know you hold a PhD in art history and aesthetics from the University of Chicago, and you've taught at numerous colleges, including Princeton and San Francisco Art Institute. But a lot of people don't know you're a painter. You've provided illustrations for many books as well as mural paintings at different universities. And I know you play the flute, many different types of flutes, don't you?
Correct.
And
Correct.
There's something that I guess there's also a two-string top shirt which you play, which is a Siberian shaman instrument, which sounds fascinating.
Right. Yeah, I got that. I visited Altai in Central Asia back in 2001, and believe it or not, they had a lot of what are called samizdat, underground copies of Mayan factor in Russian, and some of those shamans there had gotten a hold of it, and they thought that was very resonant with their cosmology. And I was at a shaman's house by invitation, and he picked up this top show and he sang me this song. I could hear my name in it, and that was about all I could understand. And then he got done singing, and he gave me that top show. So
that's amazing.
Little licks on it.
I love the flute. The flute is just beautiful, and I know that you always begin your talks and your lectures with a prayer and playing the flute, which is just beautiful. I was listening to many of the shows that you've been on, and there's some YouTube shows that I was watching videos, which are just great.
Yeah, we did one last year at the Day Out of Time in Byron Bay in Australia. I think you might have seen that one. Yes,
absolutely. It was wonderful. I also wanted to mention that you have an identical twin brother, which a lot of people probably didn't know about. His name is Ivan Arguelles, and he's a famous poet. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, he lives over in the East Bay, San Francisco East Bay area in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Well, I wanted to talk about August 1987, which was such a historic event, and I took part in that great event when we had a shift in time. It was a day of meditation for everyone. I think it was the 16th and 17th of 1987. August, and I was at Eagle Rock in Southern California with many, many other people, and we spent the day meditating and prayer, and I know that the timelines, the fabric of time and the tubes that run on the fabric of time were hooked into primary events. Could you talk about that a little bit and how that all came about? That was just an incredible event.
Well, yeah, that was a date of destiny. I had learned about that in around 1970 or so from a Lakota Indian poet and man named Tony Shearer, and he had gotten that date from a curandera, a female shaman down in Oaxaca. So she said, well, that's the date, August 16th and 17th. That's when the 9 hell cycles come to an end, and we open the passageway to the conclusion of the cycle. But essentially, we enter the time of prophecy then. Well, those dates stuck in my head, and when it got to be the 1980s, I knew that I had to do something about that. I knew something deep in me was stirring. I had already done some research in my 1975 book called The Transformative Vision. You will find that I already noted the date 2012 as the end of the 5,125-year Mayan Great Cycle and the time of the collapse of our technocratic civilization and the beginning of something new. Well, in the 1980s, a number of catalytic events occurred for me. One of them was seeing the photographs of the face of Mars that when I met Richard Hoagland.
Oh, yes.
He showed me those on December 1st of 1983 when we were both visiting with Marilyn Ferguson, the author of The Aquarian Conspiracy. That was quite a moment. And a few days after that, I had this vision of what came to be the Harmonic Convergence. I saw people gathered in sacred circles around the planet, and I saw that it was like an earth surrender ceremony, that I saw that the human being had to surrender its ego to the earth. It still does, just look at Copenhagen right now, and that there should be a worldwide ceremony to commemorate that. And so about a year later, the phrase harmonic convergence came to me when I was writing something called Earth Shaman. And so I knew that was the name of the event. I knew that's what it was called. I knew it was a cosmic moment when there was a type of pause in the resonant field of the Earth, and that a signal was being required by the higher intelligence from the Earth to show that we had the will to surrender to the Earth, to surrender our egos, to surrender to a higher cause, to a higher vision. So I started to put out the word, and of course that was the days before the internet. All we had was fax machines, telephones, and snail mail.
Isn't that incredible?
So there I was, a voice in Boulder, Colorado, and putting out the word, and somehow or other it caught, and the fact that it caught told me it was correct. My book, The Mayan Factor, came out in April of 1987, and suddenly, after that book came out, I was receiving phone calls from different media. The Wall Street Journal called me. That was the first big break on the story. I was very surprised. They said, haven't you heard everybody in Hollywood is talking about this? So they interviewed me, and then when that interview came out on June 23rd, well, that was the avalanche, and then pretty soon it was all over, not only in North America, but all around the world. There were different events that occurred. People heard the call.
They certainly did.
Went.
Oh, absolutely. It was just incredible what happened. And so many things happened after that, too. It was like apartheid ended. That was a little bit later, but the wall came down, and right.
Yeah, there was a big stock market crash that occurred 2 months afterwards, and all sorts of different things happened. As I pointed out in my book, The Mayan Factor, and I kept saying at that time, was that this was opening a passageway to 2012, that 2012 was actually the conclusion of the harmonic convergence, and that we had this 25-year window to see whether or not we could realign ourselves with the natural cycles of the universe and save ourselves and our planet, or would we continue to just heedlessly go in our own materialistic way and destroy ourselves and the planet? Well, as you know, right now we are at a very, very critical moment. The
yes.
big meeting in Copenhagen, which is not doing too well.
No.
And probably won't. Unfortunately, as it becomes more and more evident, the world leadership is not really capable of responding to the actual nature of the emergency that exists on this planet. So once again, it is really up to the will of the people to determine how to handle this. And I think the main way to handle it is, as I had indicated with the first stage of the Harmonic Convergence in 1987, we have to surrender to the earth. We have to surrender our ego and our will to a higher vision. And that is really what's going to catalyze the kind of change that is coming in 2012.
Absolutely. You know what's kind of interesting? I don't think we as collectively as a human race realize how powerful our thoughts are out there, our intent. And I know one thing that I heard or read about was when 9/11 happened, I guess it triggered something in the satellites in the North and South Hemisphere were picking up Earth's magnetic field and spiked off the charts on 9/11. Yeah. And they said that it's from the human emotion did that. It spiked the magnetic field in the Earth, and we affected the Earth. All of us did that. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It's true. We affected the Earth in 1987. That was another effect. There's a man, Dr. Roger Nelson at Princeton University, who has a noosphere website there. And he's been doing research, and his colleagues have been doing research. I believe some of that information came from him. They've been doing research on moments where there's some type of collective human response to some event or other, and that they see that when the human mind comes together, the human mind and its emotional body come together and synchronize, they actually, as you pointed out, can actually change the vibrational frequency of the electromagnetic field of the planet. This is something also that Nikola Tesla was acutely aware of, and it's a type of principle or theory that we've been operating with for quite a while. It's basically the theory that we are operating with in the Harmonic Convergence of 1987. And this is a theory we want to see applied strenuously in 2012.
Well, excuse me, I know that they say that in studies that the brain creates electrical and magnetic fields, but the human heart creates electrical fields 100 times greater than the brain and 5,000 times magnetically than the brain. So, it's just incredible what we can do. And another event I think that was triggered was Apollo 13, when everybody came together and said prayers for those astronauts. And the miracle that happened, so we can create that again. We can create peace on Earth. We can create so many things, good things on Earth, if we just work together, right, Jose? And that I know that's what you're doing.
It's the hardest thing in the world is to get humans to unify. You have to find the right points. You can get them. It's so like I said, it was kind of a miracle that the Harmonic Convergence pulled off the way it did, just to get that many human beings around the world to unify. A lot of people didn't even know why they were doing it. They just knew they had to do it.
Sure.
So I think that everyone's now aware of this signal, this what I call this signal called 2012. People are waking up to it, and because of Roland Emmerich's movie, now it's like a mass consciousness, a really mass mind, mass media type of buzzword. And so people, as we get to that 2012 point, people are going to be really deeply wondering, and I think it's going to be really important to be putting out the call for positive thoughts and gatherings of people to be together with their hearts and their minds with the earth, and know that they are synchronized with many, many, many hundreds and thousands and millions of other groups and people who are doing the same thing. Synchronizing our hearts and our minds in specific moments in time is the way that we signal the higher intelligence that is monitoring our operations on the earth, and it's also how we begin to create a new resonant harmonic mind wave that creates a shift of consciousness, which is really the only thing that's going to change things.
Right, absolutely. And I wanted to talk about your, well, maybe I should ask you this. Are you planning another harmonic convergence before the 12/12 or the 12/21 date?
Well, what we're looking at right now, we're looking at the whole year of 2012 that we're calling the Harmonic Convergence of 2012. There's already any number of events that are being planned and coordinated. There's one by a man named Bill Gladstone. He's calling for a big event on August 11th of 2012. Other people are calling for other events. What we want to do is put out the call, coordinate all the different events, and then also call for specific event points where people will gather. We'll definitely be calling for one on December 21st, 2012, but we'll also call for a number of other ones during that time as kind of staging points. And these will be similar to the Harmonic Convergence of 1987. We will be wanting people to gather in natural places, sacred sites, whether they're natural or historical monuments or whatever they may be, and to gather with the intention of, as we had it back then, of surrendering to the earth, of waiting for the higher vision to come in, of putting out the call to the higher intelligence, and wire the planetary field in that particular way. Harmonic Convergence 2012.
Wow. Well, there's such polarization right now about global warming, and but we know something is going on right now. Everything is happening faster. There's something strange going on with the Earth, with the earthquakes. The animals are feeling it, and I think we're all starting to feel it. And all the planets in our solar system are doing some strange things. Jupiter and its magnetic fields have doubled in the last few years. Mars has global warming, and I know we're not out there causing that. And there's just incredible, strange things going on. So I know you see something coming up too, don't you? Some big event.
Yes. Well, that's the whole point of this 2012 phenomenon, is that we have to understand that we're involved in, first of all, in a type of solar galactic or cosmic process. There's a shift that's going across the board, across the whole solar system. The sun itself is changing, and because it's a star, all stars have their own evolutionary process, and particularly stars that have planetary systems, that they constitute a whole large system called a heliosphere, and this whole system itself is changing. So we're experiencing some of those changes here. We have a particular, as human beings on this planet, we're at a particular point of destiny where the karmic load that we've been carrying and actually amplifying through our heedlessness over the last 5,000 years is reaching a critical point of causing nature to have a type of feedback to the effects of our human thought and our human actions. And this feedback effect of nature is, that's what's creating the different earthquakes and tsunamis, like this set of tsunamis and earthquakes that happened just recently across the Ring of Fire in Indonesia and in the Pacific Islands was very, very interesting and unusual. It was like a movement of a whole tectonic plate that was occurring. And as these plates start to move, down here where we are in Australia and New Zealand, we're seeing massive amounts of icebergs and ice breaking off Antarctica that are floating up this way. So, anyone who thinks that nothing is going on really should remove their blinders, because obviously something is going on. 60 years ago, our human population was 3 billion, and now it's 6 going on 7 billion. Just that kind of increase is exponential. The increase of the global warming since 1997 is now going straight up compared to the gradual way it has been. And you see that everybody at Copenhagen is bickering about that, whether we should allow the Earth's temperature to increase 1.5 degrees centigrade or 2 degrees centigrade. Well, I look at that and say, do they really think if it increases to 2 degrees centigrade that then they can stop it?
Yeah, right. Oh, gee. Well, we were just talking about animals, and I know that the whales, they say recently, I guess in the last 8 years, they're singing in deeper voices. And it's happening all over in the oceans, on this planet, everywhere. And scientists are baffled. They don't know why they're doing this. Do they know something? Are they picking up what's going on? I'm sure they do. Yeah. They're feeling the Earth.
Yeah, they are, especially with the whales and the dolphins who operate by resonant communication fields. And as we know, that they are extraordinary beings, and they can operate. They're operating fully with their whole brain, and they can operate one half their brain and then turn that off and get the other half. So they don't. In that way, they don't need to sleep the way we do. And they, of course, have been monitoring the resonant frequency changes of the Earth. So that's basically they're responding to that and are signaling to us that that this great change is coming, and this change is coming at the end of 2012. And what we're talking about, as I said, is a shift in consciousness and a resonant frequency shift when we move from one time into another.
Right. Well, it sounds like this shift is going to force all of us to change, to evolve. We just can't continue this way. So now you see a big solar event coming our way, don't you?
Well, I think that's one of the principal events that will be coming in 2012 and early 2013. And that's a major solar flare. Now, NASA has been putting out some interesting information. They reported at the end of last year, early this year, that on June 3rd, 2007, there was a major, unprecedented solar storm, solar flare that punched a hole in the Earth's magnetic field that was the size of the Earth.
Wow!
And what happened at that point is that the Earth's magnetic field, and particularly the poles, were flooded with unprecedented amounts of solar plasma and cosmic radiation. Now, what happens is that stuff gets stored, and then when the sunspot cycle picks up again in 2011 and 2012, that the NASA is predicting that there will be a sizable enough flare that will hit the electromagnetic field. It will knock the plasma that's currently stored at the poles into the field. That will create a major breakdown of all the electronic systems of the human civilization. They predict, and this is NASA. NASA's predicting that such an event that they predict is highly possible would knock out all the systems of the Earth for up to 3 months. Well, if that happened, you can just kiss the old world goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing's going to be working, so we're going to have a bad hair day on that day, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a very long bad hair day. It's a good thing to go solar and wind, and get your solar and wind generators going, and forget about the electrical grid of the global civilization. So, well, that's something worth looking at, and the Roland Emmerich's film kind of played with that idea a little bit, that there was a major event on the sun, and it caused a heating up in the Earth's core. Well, that's not too far-fetched from the information that NASA's putting about this major breach in the Earth's electromagnetic field and the saturation of the field with these unprecedented amounts of plasmas.
Now, when we get all that radiation coming in, doesn't that cause evolutionary changes? I think that has happened through the ages.
Yeah, it brings in, definitely different types of mutations that are obviously possible at a molecular or cellular type of level. We're looking at this and seeing, well, if there's that much energy that's now potential energy stored in the polar regions of the electromagnetic field, our idea is to create a synchronized mind wave to be ready when those plasmas begin to be released, because usually what happens when those plasmas are released, they create what's called the aurora borealis in the north and the aurora australis in the south. And these are brilliant phenomena. And our idea is that to telepathically, through our electromagnetic brain waves, to telepathically engage these plasmic flows and to create a rainbow bridge around the Earth.
So are you saying that the Earth has chakras like we do? Is that what you see? Because I know you talk about the rainbows around the Earth.
Yeah, I think that certainly the Earth has two major, has the polar, two poles. The Earth is basically, as Tesla pointed out, the Earth is basically an electrodynamic structure, and it's bipolar. It has, positive north pole, negative south pole, and that he also talked about things like this, where energy currents could be connected to create a type of a higher resonant field, and that's what we're talking about. Create a higher resonant field through a type of rainbow bridge that, say, connects the Earth's crown chakra at the North Pole and the Earth's root chakra at the South Pole, and create a higher resonant frequency, a unified field, actually, which would then be visible as the connection of the two auroras. In scientific terms, this is called creating a magnetic reconnection, which would hook the auroras at the equator and create a permanent stream, and then that would be seen by everyone on the Earth as a type of rainbow bridge. And would also, if we could do that, we would also demonstrate that the human mind is capable of interacting with the electromagnetic field and creating an actual, as we were talking earlier, a phenomenal change in the electromagnetic field and the electromagnetic structure of this field around the Earth.
Now, is that something that we want to stop, with this big event, this big solar event? I mean, collectively, can we change it, or is this something that's just meant to happen? It's fated to happen, and we just have to prepare for it.
I think it's best to prepare for it. The other things I'm talking about with this, what I'm saying is with this rainbow bridge concept, is taking advantage of the plasma streaming into the atmosphere and to align them to create a rainbow bridge which will raise the frequency of the entire electromagnetic field of the planet. We may get a rainbow bridge, and we also may lose the cybersphere.
Wow.
But by getting the rainbow bridge, we're going to gain higher consciousness, we're going to gain telepathic communion, and we're going to enter the noosphere.
Well, I had a rainbow vision in 1985 on August 7th in Los Angeles with my mom. She was there to see it too, and I'm not sure what it means, but I think rainbows are incredible, and I don't know if most people know that when you blend the 7 colors of the rainbow, it produces pure white light, and that's what we are, right? We're rainbow people, right? We're moving towards that pure white light.
Rainbow people, and we're going to the white light. That's been something I've worked and lived with for all my life, I think. And I think that that rainbow vision if you go to our website, noosphereforum.org, we now have a page on the Rainbow Bridge, which we're building, gathering all the information. The Rainbow Bridge exists in Native American prophecies. It's in the Teutonic mythology. They have Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. And the concept of the Rainbow Bridge has existed among many peoples. Mostly, they see at the end of days that there will be a rainbow bridge that will connect the dimensions. This is something Alice Bailey, the occultist, she writes about that too. The rainbow bridge is the Antakarana, which connects ourselves with the higher dimensions. And I think that's what we're talking about, because when we go from 2012 to 2013, we're talking also not only about a shift in consciousness, but a dimensional shift that will be operating fully both in the third and the fourth dimensions. And that's going to be a very, very different kind of experience, a new evolutionary level. And we'll think, wow, what was that stuff we were living in the past? That was a weird dream, wasn't it?
Yeah, really. Oh, we're going to awaken finally.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about.
It's about
time. Waking up.
Well, the one thing, like you've talked about, that, we have to realize that we are all connected, including to the earth, and we affect the earth, and we're all one. We forget that we all resonate, and, everything that we do, we affect each other and the earth. And when that change comes about, it's going to be incredible. And
yes, that's absolutely correct, Betsy. Absolutely correct. We're all part of the same single living system called life.
Yes.
And that includes the trees and the animals and us and the whole thing. And so we're a part of this living, evolving network, this one system called life. And this is also referred to as the biosphere. The biosphere is a single system. Life is a single unity that's spread around the planet. And our heart and our mind are also a single unity. And we've divided ourselves and separated ourselves in so many different ways. Well, we're going to see the dissolving of all the boundaries and of all the borders and of all the institutions that keep us separated, and we're going to awaken to our intrinsic essential oneness.
Well, I'm anxious for it to happen. I wish it was happening right this minute, but I guess I can't be impatient.
We've got 1,105 more days.
Right. Countdown.
Yeah, it's the countdown, and time is accelerating, and more things are happening more quickly every day. The effect of the cybersphere, the information, the virtual noosphere, is such that it further accelerates and exasperates our ability to cope.
Now, tell me what you think about it, because there's a lot of UFO reports recently all over the world, and I think that it's getting more pronounced. What is your feeling about that?
Yeah, it definitely is. As a matter of fact, I had an experience of them last night.
You did? Tell us about it.
Well, I had a clairvoyant experience in the process of going to sleep. Suddenly, I jumped in my consciousness, and I realized I was clairvoyantly aware of these three different UFOs in a formation not too far from where I'm staying here, and it was very, very clear. I could see them. I could see them very distinctly. The light, because there's not much new moon right now. There was the dimly gleaming light off their somewhat metallic types of bodies. But it was just very clear. It was just boom. And I said, well, that's a good sign. Well, the thing is that we are not alone. There is higher intelligence. I've referred to this as the Galactic Federation. The higher intelligence is very curious about how we're going to be handling this shift. And so as we get closer to this date, this end date of 2012, which is really the conclusion of one cycle and the beginning of another. It's not really the end of the Mayan calendar. It doesn't end. It goes into different cycles. But some of these cycles have phases of evolutionary development, and this is we're talking about marking the end of one phase of evolutionary development and going into another phase of evolutionary development. We're completing a materialist phase of development. Now we're going to go into a spiritual, mental phase of development. So the higher intelligence is very curious about how we're going to be handling this. And as we get closer to it and the situation heats up, as it were, on this planet, they get more and more curious. They won't intervene directly at this point anyway, but they are interested in establishing telepathic communication. And that's what we're also looking at, is how do we establish a telepathic network or telepathic field that is attuned to this higher intelligence. There are different groups around the world working with this idea here. One of them is the linked with the Space Research Institute of the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and they have a website called www.ourplanet.cc. If you go there, you'll see they've been doing some interesting research where they've set up to ask questions, and they get answers in terms of crop circles.
Wow. Well, it seems like the crop circles are trying to tell us something, but I was wondering what you thought of this recent blue spiral that was seen over Norway. I know they said it was a Russian rocket, but what do you think? What was your take on it?
I don't know. I saw the photos of that, and it certainly looked like, as they said, it looked like a computer-enhanced image projected on the sky, which is, I wasn't sure what to make of that. The fact that it happened in Norway, close to the North Polar region, I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know whether someone was actually testing some type of massive beam and projecting this type of image, or whether that was actually an extraterrestrial signal that was being communicated at that point, kind of like a crop circle in the sky.
Right. Well, yeah, maybe it was some kind of holographic, something that they were experimenting with.
Yeah, that's what my thought was. It was that there was some type of holographic experiment and then a projection of something like that. But it was definitely very fascinating and very mysterious.
Oh, it sure was. Well, it's got everybody a buzz about it, that's for sure. Now, I want to ask you, everybody has been talking about the cardinal climax, which is a astrological event that's coming up, and they're talking about this unusual planetary configuration that is going to cause all these changes and upheavals. But I think it fits in with what you're talking about and what's coming up in 2012.
Yeah. This is this event coming up through 2010, correct?
Yeah. Well, I think it started about now, but they're saying it goes through probably the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, that's undoubtedly that's the astrological correspondence, I would say. To me, what's just inevitable. If you are in disregard of natural and divine law for a really long time and stubbornly pursue your own methods and your own system and ignore the signs of the consequences of your action that your environment is giving you, at one point it just doesn't hold.
Right.
And we've already seen, like right now, it's like we have the dam is broken in a number of places, and there's a lot of little Dutch boys putting their fingers in it, trying to keep it from overflowing. The financial meltdown, the so-called war on terror, and the global climate change, where everyone just wants to patch the buck. No one in the leadership wants to change. No one wants to give up one iota of what they have. I think it's really interesting that at the Copenhagen event that the Chinese and the Indians are most resistant because they just got their economies going. And it's just amazing to me that their leaders would be so short-sighted as to say, we want to get to the place where we experience everything that you've been experiencing, and then maybe we'll consider. And again, just in flying in the face of all the facts and the information and everything else that's happening, all the handwriting that's on the wall. Well, these kinds of attitudes, and then you have this type of polarization between the developing countries and the rich industrialized countries. Of course, the people in the Pacific want a lower ceiling on the amount of rise in temperature, and because their islands are already being flooded out. All this kind of stuff. You see, nobody can unify. There's a crisis. Everybody says, yeah, there's some kind of crisis. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having a meeting with 12,000 people. But nobody can unify on this. I was in 1999. There was an event in The Hague in Holland, and I went to this event at the 100th anniversary of the Hague Peace Conference. And I was just amazed. There were hundreds of groups, peace groups of all kinds from everywhere, and there was no way in the world anyone was going to get to unanimity about anything. It was just astonishing to me how divisive everything was, and how nobody, even among peace groups, how they couldn't get to any kind of unanimity. And it's the same thing here. Well, if that's how the leadership consciousness of the human species, the dominant species on this planet, the species that's creating the problem, is, well, that can't hold. It's already in a state of collapse, and natural factors and social disruptive factors and mental factors, and more people are going insane than ever before. They're going to, that has a cumulative effect, and at some point 2010, 2011, I'm sure the bubble's going to burst big time.
Oh, I think so too. I've felt it. I had dreams as a child of great big earth changes and everything, so I knew it was going to happen around this time. I felt it, seen it in my dreams, and I know it's coming.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, we're just at the beginnings of it now, and in many ways, it's already started. So. And we're now in an irreversible process. So we'll get to that point where it's going to become. We'll have to understand that the only way out is to become supernatural.
Okay. Well, and there's so many people out there. I call them the ostriches that just stick their head in the sand and say, no, nothing's happening. We're being negative.
Exactly.
And wake up out there. It is. There's a lot of things going on, and if you don't see it, I was wondering what you think about Planet X, Nibiru. They're saying that this Planet X, which is a failed star, it's a brown dwarf that comes through our solar system every 3,600 years and supposedly plays havoc with our solar system and with the Earth, and it's coming through again and going to cause a shift of the Earth's axis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not certain about that at all. Maybe there's something to it, maybe there isn't. It's actually not a part of my sphere of consciousness.
So you haven't seen anything like that in your visions or dreams?
No. I know I've read about that, and I know Zachariah Sitchin's work and so on, but I just don't know if that's a factor in this at all, or whether that's real or not. I just don't know. Right.
Well, I'm not sure either what it is, but I know it's coming. Like a train, it's coming.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's coming. That's right.
Yes. Yeah, right. I wanted to talk about Mars because I know you had a profound, I guess Richard Hoagland had a profound effect on you with the face of Mars, and I also had a dream about Mars and all the different things on Mars, like the face of Mars. There's just a lot of structures and things on there that we haven't been told about. But I wanted to hear how that all came about.
Well, I believe that there had been a civilization prior to the civilizations here on Earth on Mars. I believe also that prior to Mars, that there had been a planet just beyond Mars, between Mars and Jupiter, which I refer to as the planet Maldek, and that's now the asteroid belt. It's very clear that like when Kepler and those people were working out their harmony of the spheres, that there was something missing between Mars and Jupiter. And in 1802, a German astronomer, Bode, trained his telescopes and realized there was an asteroid belt, and that must have been the remnants of the planet that was originally between Mars and Jupiter. And I believe that planet Maldek was destroyed, and that it had a civilization as well. Remnants of that civilization made it to Mars, and through different means established a civilization there. The civilization on Mars, because Mars has a very peculiar kind of climate. It goes through really periods when it can sustain life, like almost like we have it here on Earth. And it's interesting that the rotation of Mars on its axis is almost exactly the same as the Earth's 24 hours, and that civilization, due to both effects of war and climate change, the Mars went quote unquote dead, or that civilization expired. But I believe again that genetic memory was transmitted from Maldek to Mars, and genetic memory was transmitted from Mars to Earth. So we on the Earth today are living. That's why why we unconsciously create these apocalyptic scenarios for ourselves, is because we've inherited these genetic memory traces from these two previous lost worlds, which experienced virtual planetary type of destruction. And so we recreate that. We've inherited these genetic memories, and so we're in the process of recreating that. It's like you're playing a game to see how close you can get to actually doing it, or can we stop it before it happens? That seems to be the big script, and that was what I saw when Richard Hoagland showed me the pictures of the face of Mars. I saw all of that just in an instant like that. I said, okay, I get the picture.
Well, I know that there's a lot of things on there that we haven't been shown, and I know they claim that there is no face of Mars. But I had a dream. This was in the I think it was like 1976 something. I think that was when the Viking probe was sent up there. And I had a dream that I was at, I think, JPL, and I was watching, the men in the room get all excited when it started scanning in on all these structures. There was like a ramp, great big ramp structure. I just saw all different kinds of things up there, and I knew that, it was like I was right there, that, we've just been lied to about so many things that are going on up there.
Well, I believe that's absolutely correct, and I believe that that we have these memories of it. I reported this in my book, The Mayan Factor. There was a Japanese-American sculptor named Isamu Noguchi who, after the Second World War, went back to Japan, and he saw what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and he came back here, and he designed, he created something in 1947. It was never completed, but he created this mock-up for a giant sculpture that would be of a face looking up into space, and he said it should be built near a type of rocket testing places, so people would notice it. And he said he called his sculpture "The Face to Be Seen from Mars." This was 29 years before the Viking probe photographed the face on Mars. I wrote to Noguchi about this. He was just absolutely, he didn't know what to think. It just blew his mind because he was. And when you look at his sculpture, it was very similar to the Martian one, where they have these tetrahedron pyramids and so on like that, because he was using tetrahedrons to create the features of the face and so on. So I believe that, for instance, he was actually having a genetic memory of the face of Mars. And after the development of atomic warfare, he knew that there had to be some kind of signal sent out. And ironically, he called it "the face to be seen from Mars." That's what I mean. We know all this. We remember way deep down. We're all trying to wake up before it turns into a really bad nightmare.
Right. Now, so you think that humans were on different planets in our solar system, and maybe we destroy those planets, and then we move on to another one. We do the planet hop.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's something like that. As I said, there's a transfer of genetic memory to the different DNA that evolves into the humans on these different planets. Yeah, there's something like that. That's what I call. See, from my point of view, the 5,125-year cycle of the Mayan calendar, this particular cycle that's ending in 2012, that this 5,125-year cycle, which is basically the cycle of history as we know it, from the first dynasty in Egypt to the Twin Towers in the present moment, that this is a cycle of the testing of the human being to see if it can overcome this bad memory and this trait to destroy planets.
Well, I hope it's over with finally. I really do.
Yeah, so we just had enough of this, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Well, thank goodness you're here to help us, and you're such a light worker to bring in all this light and awaken us, help awaken everyone to this, with your harmonic convergence and all your other things that you're doing. And I want to ask you what you're doing in Australia, if you could talk about that.
Well,
I've been there for a while.
I've been coming here for a little bit from time to time to go into a work retreat. It's where we find a place where we can be, where it's quite remote and it's away from the main currents of civilization. So we're able to experience with maybe a little greater clarity the cosmic environment, let's say, and be in a position where we are in a direct alignment with the South Magnetic Pole. So the type of research that we're doing, which we refer to as the Noosphere 2 project, we're able to conduct here. So so we come here from time to time, spend little periods of time here to do more deep, intensive inner work and research into the electromagnetic field and the noosphere changes that are coming.
Are you working with any of the Aboriginals there, working with Dreamtime?
Oh, we have some contact with them. Yeah, we have some contact with them. Mm-hmm.
I've always been fascinated with the Dreamtime. Are you working with anything like that with Dreamtime and?
Well, we're all in dream time. We're living one dream right now, and we want to get into another one.
It's the grand illusion here.
Yeah.
Yes. How true. I wanted to ask you about Lord Pacal. Is it? How do you pronounce
Pacal
it?
Votan.
Yes.
Pacal Votan. Yeah, he was what I call the chief engineer, the head of the Mayan mission in the development of the Mayan, what we call the Mayan civilization, some 1,300 or 1,400 years ago, and he was the head, what I might call time scientist and planetary engineer of the project. What we refer to as the Mayan calendar, as I discovered in my researches, is actually a very, very refined mathematical template that measures the resonances and calibrations of frequencies of the planetary field in relationship to the sun, to the galaxy, and to other star systems. And so he was the head person on the project. His life spanned a very, very, very specific point of frequency calibrations in the Great Cycle, which is what tipped me off to what the actual nature of his being and his mission were, which was basically to take a reading on the planet and leave some clues and codes behind because he knew that by 2012 that we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
They know that we'd be in trouble, and so part of my mission in life was to discover these codes that he left behind and to begin to elaborate a much larger comprehension of what 2012 is all about. He left a fabulous tomb, which was immediately covered over after it was dedicated in the year 692, and for 1,260 years, no one knew the existence of it. It was serendipitously discovered on June 15th, 1952, exactly 1,260 years after it had been sealed off. Wow. 1260, that's an interesting number because you find that in the book of Revelation. The exile of the two prophets is for 1260 days. The 1260-day countdown to, and they talk a lot about the 1260 days in there, and also in the book of Daniel, and the 1260-day countdown to the 2012 began on July 10th of 2009, which happened to be Tesla's birthday.
I love Tesla.
And that's when we entered this final phase, this 1260 days, which will be filled with wars and plagues and rumors and blah, 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 the usual stuff. But that 1260 also refers to the fact that we're living in an artificial time that's coordinated by an irregular 12-month calendar and the 60-minute and the mechanical 60-minute clock. And so the 1260 years of that tomb represents the entombment of humanity in the artificial time of technology and mechanical time. But from 692 to 2012, when that tomb was dedicated until 2012, that's 1320 years, and that 1320 refers to the universal timing cycle, the universal frequency of synchronization, which is the basis of all the Mayan calendars. So what his prophecy, Pacal's prophecy, said, when my tomb was discovered in 1952, humanity will be immersed in the tomb of artificial time, of materialism. But in 2012, when the cycle ends, humanity will be released into the universal timing frequency of 1320, the natural time. So that's basically what that's about.
Now, is he depicted in a spaceship in one of the Maya cards?
Well, some people believe that that's what it is. Some Russians actually were the first ones who came up with that theory in the 1970s, because that's the sculpture of him on the sarcophagus lid of his tomb, which you see there. He's in a very curious position. If you turn it sideways, the Russians said, and then it looks like an astronaut maneuvering the instruments of his space capsule. But he was a time traveler. He didn't need the space capsule.
Well, you're a time traveler too, aren't you?
I am.
You are. I know. Definitely. Now, I want to talk about the Maya a little bit. Now, where did they come from? They're so mysterious. I've been to Belize, and I know it's a very interesting place. I've been to a couple of the pyramids down there, and I was told by one of the Mayans there that was taking care of the area that they had a way of moving stone in the air, that stones could float in the air. Now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we have a lot of capacities. We use 15% of our brain. We don't know what the other 85% is about. The other 85%, if we could tap into that, then we'd all be like Jesus Christ walking on water, or like the Mayans lifting stones and floating them in the air, or we'd be having this conversation by telepathy and beaming it out to whoever wanted to tune into it.
Right.
So some of the Mayans say they came from the Pleiades, and it's interesting that one of the central stars of the Pleiades is called Maya. I believe that the Mayans do have originally an extraterrestrial origin, that they came here, created a genetic type, and then evolved that genetic type into the Mayan civilization. Many of the head Mayans, I believe, departed around 830 A.D. They left behind those who wish to stay behind, who we now know as the indigenous Mayans.
Do you think they were part of the Atlanteans too?
Oh, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, okay.
So a lot of the early people who came across the Mayans thought that maybe they were Atlanteans, but I don't necessarily think that's the case.
Mm-hmm. So with your calendar, we can just throw out the old Gregorian calendar, and if we had yours, I know we'd probably be more in balance, or we would be in balance.
You should get a hold of our calendar. If you don't have one, you can get one at www.lawoftime.org. Just ask for one.
Oh, great.
So anyone who's listening, they can do that and just start to follow it. You don't need to throw. I mean, a lot of people, like yourself probably, or other people, are still somewhat in what I call the 1260 world, and still need to make appointments in the old calendar. But it's not hard to follow two calendars. You use your Gregorian calendar until the system ceases to function, to keep your dates and your appointments, and do your business, pay your bills. That's what the Gregorian calendar is for. Mm-hmm. But then you can follow the 13-moon calendar and put yourself into cosmic attunement. You begin to live the natural harmonic cycles, begin to experience more synchronicity, begin to understand what telepathy is, and so on. That's the whole point of living in natural cycles, is that when you are living in time, attuned to actual time, not clock time. Clock time shuts you off from your intuition, actually. That when you're living in natural time, then and living in the natural cycles and living according to higher harmonic frequencies, well, then you begin to open to synchronicity, telepathy, a more harmonic sensibility. Maybe you even feel more like an artist.
That sounds great. So throw out the clocks, throw out the old calendar, and let's just start all over again.
Start all over again. That's the whole point. That's absolutely the whole point.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah. It's been quite a conversation, Betsey.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to ask you real quick here, so how do you envision our future after the 2012 date?
Yeah, I envision our future that we'll move into, as I said, into a new consciousness. We're going to leave behind time is money. Right. And we're going to enter into living time is art. We're going to be living in much greater harmony. We're going to be experiencing telepathy. We're going to be in contact with the cosmic civilization. We're going to develop an entirely different kind of culture and civilization on this earth. We're going to be living a much simpler lifestyle. We're going to find that telepathy and our paranormal powers accomplish much of what we rely on machines to do. We won't need governments or institutions. We'll realize that with common sense we just can take care of ourselves in our own communities that we can voluntarily choose to develop in. We'll be entering another golden age, and that golden age will go on for at least another 7 Baktuns, 7 cycles of 144,000 days, and then probably get another evolutionary upgrade.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to it, and you give us so much hope now that, it's great. I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to be on the show tonight and putting up with the phone problems.
Oh, yeah, that's just the old cybersphere stuff, nothing to worry about. I had a deep intuition that this conversation with you was going to be very, very rewarding, and so I accepted the opportunity. It has been, Betsey.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like I know you already. I'm getting emotional here, but I want to thank Stephanie and Jacob too. They've just been so much help. They're just been wonderful, and you too. I wish you all the best, and I hope I meet you in person one of these days.
We'll work on it telepathically and see what we can do in the 3D. Okay?
Okay, sounds great. Well, I want to give out your websites again. It's lawstime.org. and newsphereforum.org. Is that right?
Correct.
Did I get it right? Okay,
absolutely.
Great.
Okay, you'll have a great time going to those sites. Okay, thanks again, Betsey.
Thank you. Have a great holiday. Thank you so much.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. I want to thank all the listeners. Thank you for being so patient. And I wanted to let you know that I will be taking a little time off. I won't be back until January 8th when I have Master Astrologer Bill Hedrick back on for updates for his new year. And wishing you all a wonderful holiday coming up and a blessed new year. Remember to open your mind and hearts to all those rainbow visions out there. Good night, and thank you again. Take care. Bye-bye.